Shocking end times prophecies, what they never told you about the truth today. The air was thick with an unsettling dread, as if the very fabric of reality was unraveling. Across the globe, whispers danced through the wind, dangling cold promises of doom and despair. Strange lights flickered in the night sky, leaving behind trails of questions that lashed against the minds of millions. A father, staring wide-eyed out of his window in a small town, suddenly clutched his chest, breath quickening as he felt the weight of a prophecy crash upon him like a tidal wave. Somewhere, an anomaly was brewing, something that had lurked in the shadows, waiting for the exact moment to unleash its horror. Every morning, townsfolk woke to find inscrutable symbols etched into the soil outside their homes, marking them as chosen or cursed. Children chattered nervously in schoolyards, sharing tales of dreams that foretold monstrous figures towering over cities. In cafes, patrons sipped their coffee, but the taste turned bitter, choking down their unease. No one could shake off the feeling that they were standing on the edge of an abyss, teetering dangerously, staring into the eyes of an unknown terror. Then it happened, the unthinkable. One night, the sky erupted, bolts of dark fire raining down upon the earth, lighting up faces twisted in shock and horror. People stumbled, searching for answers amidst chaos. What does it mean? Is this the end? They cried out, voicing fears that echoed through the streets long after dusk. It was like a scene from a nightmare, unspeakable darkness encroaching upon the light, swallowing everything in its wake. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. And just when hope seemed lost, a figure emerged from the mass of terrified onlookers. An old woman, clutching an ancient book to her chest, claimed to hold the answer, an explanation that lay buried beneath layers of time and secrecy. Could she be humanity's last chance? The crowd hushed as she raised her hands, eyes wild and urgent. Listen closely, she strained to shout, what you believe to be an event of the end is just the beginning. With that, an ominous silence fell, filling the air with questions begging to be answered. What did she know? What could possibly come next? The crowd shifted restlessly, eyes darting, minds racing. The old woman's proclamation hung heavily in the air, the words twisting like tendrils of smoke around their hearts. Who was she? How had she come to possess such knowledge? With a trembling hand, she opened the ancient book, pages yellowed and curling, ink fading but the symbols still glaringly vivid. This is a record, she rasped, her voice thick with urgency, of a cycle that has repeated before. This is not our first awakening, nor will it be our last. Gasps rippled through the spectators, fear now mixed with curiosity. A flash of lightning illuminated the frail figure, casting eerie shadows that danced across the pavement. She continued, they thought they had silenced the truth. But it is time to remember. From the back of the crowd, a man shouted, remember what? The tension snapped like a taut string, and the old woman fixed her wild eyes on him, her expression fierce. Remember that the darkness is not our enemy. It is merely a herald, and the light is the choice we must make. Murmurs surged through the gathering, chaotic questions swirling about like a tempest. The man pressed on, and what if we refuse? What if we choose ignorance? What then? Her gaze softened, a glimmer of sorrow breaking through her fierce exterior. Then all hope will flicker and fade like a dying star. However, she added, raising a finger, every prophecy gives way to the choice of the people. You can shape what is to come. Those words clashed against the fear suffocating them. In the dark of night, faced with blurring realities, a flicker of defiance sparked within the crowd. What can we do? A woman cried desperately, fear crackling in her voice. The old woman closed her eyes, as if communing with unseen forces, her fingers tracing invisible designs in the air. You must gather among the chosen, she whispered. Those marked by the symbols. Seek the truth within yourselves. Trust your instincts. Suddenly, shrieks erupted from behind the crowd. A group ran toward them, eyes wide with terror, shouting of night's horrors that had chased them down the streets. The shadows, they're alive. One of the newcomers collapsed, breathless, while the others clamored to tell their tale, hearts pounding like war drums. The old woman's intensity sharpened, slicing through the chaos like a knife. The darkness is awakening. You must act tonight. Find the chosen, those who carry the marks. Panic gripped the crowd like iron chains as the words sunk in. Darkness thrummed around them, encroaching like an invasion. Families clutched children closer, lovers held tight to hands, and whispers of fear spilled through cracked lips. What could they possibly do against the looming shadows? But in that desperate moment, a flicker of hope ignited in the depths of their despair. They felt an undeniable pull, a connection to something greater than themselves. Could they really change their fate? As the night thickened, the air charged with an electrifying energy, the crowd began splitting apart, searching frantically for the signs woven into their very lives. Would they discover the truth? Or would they remain paralyzed in the encroaching darkness? The old woman stood among the chaos, a beacon of what could be, as shadows whispered around her. The ground beneath trembled. The moment to act was upon them. Time was slipping away, and just then, a distant scream echoed across the street, slicing through the night. Eyes widened. Hearts raced. The shadows had arrived, and the true test was about to begin. What would they find in the darkness? And who among them would rise to answer the call? The crowd thinned, desperate faces morphing into frantic expressions as they sprinted away from the creeping darkness. The night felt alive, the shadows swirling with a malevolent hunger. The old woman's voice trembled, but it cut through the terror. Find the chosen, she urged, as the air thickened with dread. A mother clutched her child, eyes darting nervously around her, breath coming in short, quick bursts. What do they look like? She stammered, her voice barely above a whisper. The old woman locked eyes with her, sorrow spilling from her gaze. You will know them, they carry burdens different from your own, she said. They will feel the call. And within the crowd, almost as if guided by electric currents, a young man stepped forward, his face stricken with determination. He could feel it, the weight of knowledge pressing against his chest. I will find them, he shouted, fiercely slicing through the sea of anxious whispers. Others turned to him, uncertainty flickering in their eyes. How do you know you're one of them? A woman asked, trembling. I don't, he admitted, but doing nothing isn't an option. Hope threaded through his words, igniting something deep within the hearts of bystanders. As the first wave of shadow washed over them, the crowd was jolted back to harsh reality. The darkness surged forward, a grotesque wave of faceless figures, snarling and grasping with clawed fingers. Gasps echoed through the air, the stench of despair clinging to their throats. Follow me, the young man called, heart pounding like a drum as he plunged into the unknown. The crowd hesitated, frozen at first, but that spark of hope began to spread. One by one, they followed, propelled by fear but also an awakening courage. Together, they ran through the twisted alleys of the town, the shadows snapping at their heels. It felt like a nightmare. Strange shapes flickered in the corners of their vision, taunting them, but they pressed on, the young man leading them further into the heart of the night. And then, they stumbled into a clearing, moonlight spilling across the ground. At the center stood a large stone with markings deeply etched into its surface, symbols that glimmered under the moon. The energy shifted. The air crackled with potential. This is it, he shouted, panting. This is where we begin. But even as he spoke, shadows swirled behind them, growing darker, more menacing. They heard the shrieks, felt the cold breath of darkness whisper against their ears. What do we do? A voice quivered, full of panic now. The old woman's voice loomed in both their memories and the very fabric of the air around them. Seek the truth within yourselves. They grasped hands, trembling together, the weight of the moment crashing down. It was the intensity of a shared heartbeat, fear threaded with something like fervor. Each face reflected the same question: what truth would they unearth together? As the shadows loomed ever closer, an unsettling harmony enveloped the gathering. No one could pinpoint at the sensation of being watched, evaluated. Suddenly, the sharp clang of metal rang out, shocking everyone into silence. A figure appeared from the shadows, stepping forward with a steely determination. "You are not alone," he declared. "Stand together." In that moment, the darkness surged again, twisting and writhing like a living entity. The chosen ones felt their hearts race, their connection intertwining as every ounce of courage surged within them. The crowd clung to their resolve, faced with the ultimate choice, to fight against the encroaching shadows or succumb to the despair that threatened to erase them. And then, as if awakening a dormant power, a symbol on the stone began to glow, casting a beam of light straight into the darkness. It cut through the cold air, bursting forth with a vibrant pulse. What they did next might change everything, but just as they braced for impact, a chilling laughter echoed in the distance, hollow and endless. Had they truly awakened something ancient? Or had they only unleashed their greatest fears? The shadows writhed and twisted, gnashing at the edges of their reality. The beam of light cut through the darkness, illuminating the faces of the crowd, each one reflecting a myriad of emotions: fear, determination, desperation. For a heartbeat, they felt the weight of their collective hope. But the laughter that followed shattered it all, reverberating like a death knell. "Step forward, chosen ones," the voice sang, smooth as silk but laced with malice. A figure emerged from the swirling veil of night, a tall, cloaked silhouette with eyes that glinted like shards of broken glass. It was a presence that drew in the light, swallowing it whole, leaving only the faintest shimmer behind. The newcomer exuded an undeniable authority, something ancient and terrifying. "What are you?" the young man blurted, gripping the hands of the people beside him as they shrank against him, a shield against the gathering shadows. "Ah, can't you see?" The figure's lips curled into a smirk. "I am the harbinger of your doom and your reckoning." Each word dripped with venom, every syllable a promise of despair. "You have awakened powerful forces, and now you must pay the price for meddling with that which must remain asleep." Fear clawed at the hearts of the chosen, squeezing tightly until their breaths quickened. "We will not back down." The young man spat defiantly, anger fueling his stance even as uncertainty swirled around the group like the fog of war. Groans erupted from the heartbeat of the shadows. They pulsed and heaved, clawing at the edges of the moonlit clearing as if eager to devour the brave souls who dared defy their master. "Foolish bravado, deluded heroes," the cloaked figure mused, surveying the tension etched in every face. "You think strength and courage will save you? The chosen ones carry the heaviest burdens, and only by confronting them can they hope to survive." At that, the crowd shifted uncomfortably. They didn't want to think about their hidden fears, the regrets buried deep, the failures that weighed heavy in their hearts. But they had no time to dwell. The darkness pressed in, its grip tightening inexorably. "What do we have to confront?" A woman's voice trembled through the murmurs. "What burdens do we carry?" The figure chuckled, a low, resonating sound that made the ground tremble slightly beneath their feet. "Only you can unearth the truths you hide so well. But I warn you, the answers may shatter your very souls." "And no." The mother with the child cried out, clutching her little one closer. "We just want safety. We don't want to lose anyone else." "Safety?" scoffed the figure. "Isn't that what you desire now? But safety cloaks itself in lies. Only truth can shield you from the shadows." With a flick of a wrist, the figure conjured spectral images, vivid memories caught in a swirling storm. Bright flashes of laughter, images of love lost, the agonizing pang of betrayal, all intermingled with the raw, aching scars that whispered secrets of pain. The group gasped, eyes widening in horror, as familiar faces flashed before them, memories that lingered like jagged shards of glass. "Face them," the figure held, "embrace what you fear the most." The shadows swelled at the precipice of their resolve, anticipation hanging in the air like the calm before a tempest. Hearts raced, palms sweated, and breathing grew erratic. They teetered on the edge of fear and courage, the line ever so thin. The young man looked at his companions, seeing the fear mirrored in their eyes. "We can't do this alone," he whispered fiercely. "Together, we can confront whatever this is. Let it come. And as he uttered those words, the ground shook violently, and the shadows roared with anger, a sound that echoed the fracture of their fear. What awaited them? The echoes of their pasts? Or a darkness beyond their comprehension? The laughter resounded again, reverberating through the trees, as time seemed to stand still, the air thick with anticipation. This was just the beginning, but the end was looming large. Would they face the shadows together, or would reality as they knew it be lost too? The dark? The shadows thickened, swirling menacingly around them as the figure's laugh echoed ominously in the charged air. The crowd held its breath, a living entity of fear and uncertainty. But beneath the tide of dread surged the pulse of something else: determination. They looked to one another, each face a mirror reflecting the same unspoken resolve. "Do not let it get in your heads," shouted the young man, feeling a surge of purpose. "We have to stand together." His voice carried over the teasing cackle of their adversary, grounding them in the present. The figure tilted its head, intrigue sparking in those glassy eyes. "Ah, the brave one speaks," it mocked. "But bravery alone will not shield you from the truths you fear." With a wave, the shadows heaved, and from the darkness emerged echoes, their own voices, their own guilt, magnified and twisted into nightmarish specters. Each echo spoke of failure, of loss, of things they wished they could rewind and erase. A man stepped forward, eyes wide, as his memories solidified into a figure, a younger version of himself, fraught with mistakes. "No. This is not real," he screamed, but deep down, he knew the truth. Inside, they all craved to hide, to burrow in the safety of oblivion. The cloaked figure leaned in, the smirk more pronounced. "You see, it is real. The past is not so easily shaken off." It gestured again, and the ground surged beneath their feet. Images of despair materialized: lost love, shattered dreams, moments that left indelible marks on their souls. Each haunting tableau paraded before their eyes, a relentless onslaught of what they refused to face. A woman clutched her side, tears spilling down her cheeks as a vision of her abandoned child glared at her, the accusation evident in its wide, pleading eyes. "It's impossible," someone shouted, their voice breaking. "We did our best." "Your best wasn't enough," the figure hissed, its words curling like smoke in the air. "But it can be forgiven. Acceptance is the key." Gasping breaths filled the clearing as the crowd began to sway. The past could unleash its grip, their secrets were burdens too great to carry. "Face it," the young man shouted again, forging a path through the rising tide of despair as he moved toward the figure, moving from defense to confrontation. As he stepped forward, the shadows bristled, recoiling as though his boldness had pierced an unseen barrier. The crowd watched in disbelief. Could he really force them to confront their demons? "I refuse to let this darkness claim us," he declared, the conviction in his voice sharp and loud. "We're more than our past mistakes. We have a choice to forge our future." The response from the figure was immediate, a guttural roar that echoed into the night, shaking the trees as if the very world around them trembled at his declaration. Shadows leaped and writhed, eager to snatch him back into their abyss. "Choices?" the figure mocked, calming the frenzy with an elegant wave of its hand. "You speak of choices, yet, what if I told you that choices come at a cost?" The clarity of its voice sliced through their chaos, as a shaky silence enveloped them. Suddenly, with a grand sweep of its cloak, it threw open a door to a luminescent void that gleamed with a kaleidoscope of colors too vibrant to be real. "Step inside, and your fears will vanish. The regrets of yesterday will dissolve into the light." Its expression twisted knowingly. "But know this, once you enter, there is no return." A murmur rippled through the crowd, fear tangling with curiosity. Could they forsake their burdens for a chance at peace? "Don't listen," a woman cried, her voice raw with desperation, shaking her head as she grasped the hands of those nearby. "We can't trust it." Yet even she faltered in her faith at the sight of that alluring vision, a life devoid of pain, an existence washed clean of the shadows of their past. Together the young man repeated, urging his friends to hold on, to embrace the storm encircling them. "We chose to fight, didn't we? As the shadows pressed in, threatening to swallow them whole, the bravado of his words rang out, rallying the chosen ones. Then let us fight. But as they took their first step toward confronting the luminous void, a blinding flash erupted. The figure let out a piercing howl, blending into the growing terror surrounding them. What price would they pay to uncover the truth? And would they lose themselves in the process? The moment of reckoning twisted tighter, a suspenseful pause before they plunged into the unknown. What awaited them in the light? Or would the shadows consume everything? The light enveloped them, an almost tangible force that vibrated with energy, a rush of colors swirling like liquid fire. They stepped forward, hearts pounding, as shadows clawed at their heels, desperate to reclaim them. The whispers of failure and regret were still fresh, echoing painfully in their minds. Keep moving. The young man shouted, his voice strained but steady, pushing against the chaos. He felt the heat of the light beckon them closer, drowning out the sinister laughter that lingered at the edges of their consciousness. Inside the void, time seemed to slow. For every step they took, memories surfaced, joy and heartache twisted together like vines threatening to strangle them. A childhood birthday party, his mother's laughter mixing with the shadow of his late father's absence, seemed to shimmer before him. Each moment was a weight, pressing down hard as if the very fabric of this new reality was stitched from their own pasts. What if it changes us? One woman whispered, her eyes darting between the crowd and the swirling light. What if we don't come back as ourselves? Fear gripped her voice, and it echoed through the group. Would they emerge transformed or torn apart entirely? I'd rather take my chances than remain chained to my past, shouted another, breaking through the cacophony of doubt. Suddenly, they moved forward in unison, momentum gathering as their shared desperation propelled them toward that brilliant possibility. But then, as they broke free of the shadows, the light dimmed. A hollow silence swallowed them. What had once been a living burst of hope now felt like a void, an empty expanse devoid of direction. Panic flooded the space, confusion spread like wildfire as they scanned their surroundings. Do you feel it? It's wrong, it's wrong. A man cried out, clutching his head as though trying to pull something out of the recesses of his mind. The luminous void flickered, images of distorted faces morphed into haunting visages of loss. Friends, lovers, all of them warped, eyes wide with terror, mouths contorted in silent screams. No! The young man yelled, cutting through the haze. This isn't what we came for. This is a trick. Suddenly, the very ground beneath them began to crack, fissures spreading like lightning, revealing endless dark pits. Shadows slithered out from the cracks, tendrils grasping at their ankles, tugging them back into the darkness. The cacophony rose again, a chorus of despair as silhouettes from their past surged forth, pulling at the fabric of their reality. Fight it! He urged, voice rising above the rising panic. Remember who we are. We are not just our mistakes. As he struggled to rally them, the female figure from the audience who had grasped hands with others broke free from the throng, stumbling toward the dark edges, her breath hitching in her throat. What if this is all that's left? What if there's no way back? Without warning, a chilling visage, a reflection of her own guilt, reached out, gripping her shoulder like a vice. She gasped as its cold breath brushed against her neck. A river of emotions flooded her senses: betrayal, regret, longing. But in that moment, the young man managed to break through. We choose our fate. We fought to escape the shadows, remember? With raised fists, he gestured to the void ahead. Let us turn the tide. Believe that we can break through this. As they summoned every ounce of strength within them, tethered by belief and fatiguing hope, a brighter light exploded from the center. The shadows recoiled, twisting in fear as this light surged forward. Together! They cried, united, fueling the fire with their collective intent. They weren't finished yet, and they wouldn't let the darkness consume them without a fight. But just as they felt the light stretching into their skin, just as hope flickered brightly, the cloaked figure re-emerged, a sneering phantom, its voice dripping with malice. What is lost can never truly be found. The cosmos trembled as the shadows loomed again, and with a thunderous roar, walls of vibrant light and haunting darkness collided. What had they awakened in their bid for freedom? And were they truly ready to confront the unimaginable consequences of their choice? The air crackled with tension, a thick fog of fear mingling with the pungent scent of dread. Faces twisted in shock, eyes wide in disbelief, as the cloaked figure towered over them, the shadows at its command. The moment felt suspended, an unforgiving pause as the reality of their situation seeped in. No. One of the men staggered backwards, desperation writ large across his features. We've come too far to turn back now. We have to keep fighting. With those words igniting the embers of resolve, the group instinctively rallied. Their hearts beat as one, driving against the chilling wind spiraling around them, challenging fate itself. Yet the very ground seemed to vibrate with sorrow, a symphony of despair that thrummed through their bones. Together! Someone yelled, and they joined hands, an indomitable chain against the darkness. The ground split wider, a gaping maw ready to swallow them whole. They felt the clutch of the shadows, slick and cold, but the warmth of their living connection surged through them. Memories tumbled into view like reflections in the glass, laughter that echoed, tears that left stains, love that had illuminated their darkest hours. We are more than our regrets. The young man shouted, his voice unwavering amidst the chaos. We are not defined by our fears. As though his words were a spell, sparks of light emerged from their clasped hands, illuminating the shadows that threatened to pull them under. The brightness shattered the dark, exploding in vibrant hues, colors they never knew existed, colors that spoke of hope, of second chances. But the figure merely grinned, a twisted smile stretching across its face, filling the air with a sense of dread. You think your light holds power over the abyss? It sneered, its voice slicing through the thin veil of triumph. Shadows only grow darker when you face them unprepared. Their hands trembled against one another, a fleeting flicker of uncertainty interlacing with conviction. Focus! A woman urged, pulling the group's attention back to the task at hand. As they concentrated, a pulse of energy rippled outward, merging their hopes and fears into a single force. It became a kind of armor against the enervating grasp of the shadows. The darkness recoiled as they pressed forward, inch by inch, breaking against that sinister laughter that clawed at the edges of their bravery. Don't look back. A man gasped. Don't let them distract you. But just as they gained ground, the echoes of their past intermingled with the present. Visages they recognized flashed before them, friends long gone, words unsaid, moments forever lost. Each face dripped with longing, clinging to their hearts like a frozen weight. Their resolve wavered. This isn't just a battle for our futures, another woman shouted. It's a fight for our pasts too. We can't leave them behind. The words resounded with clarity, a double-edged sword revealing their deepest fears. What about the losses? What about the dreams they'd buried? The shadow sensed hesitation, flowing in like a dark tide, reclaiming the ground they'd gained. Grasping hands began to falter, fear creeping back in. No, not again. The young man cried, feeling the weight of despair creeping into the circle. We can't let them take that from us. His shout rang out an act of defiance, and somehow, against all odds, it sparked another flame of realization in the others. They were not just fighting for themselves but for everything they'd lost. It became a shared heartbeat, a collective surge through the void. With renewed ferocity, they leaned into that shared pain, channeling it into a fierce determination to break free. The light pulsed brighter, blindingly bright, now a flash of purity battling the consuming dark. But just as the shadows began to recoil, the ominous figure rose, a dark silhouette shrouded in the colors of despair. Do you really think you can reshape your destinies? Let me show you the true horror of your choice. The finality of its words sent chills down their spines. What would the shadows reveal? What fate awaited them if they faltered? Now? With uncertainty blooming in their hearts, the young man realized the upcoming fight would be their most daunting task yet. Would they summon the strength from within, or would the darkness drown them in guilt and sorrow? As the voices of their past echoed louder, the ultimate confrontation loomed before them, restless and darker than they could fathom. A low rumble shook the ground, a whispered promise of chaos lurking just below the surface. The dark figure, its form shifting like ink in water, leaned closer, its breath coming in heavy gusts that chilled them to the bone. "Let me show you." It howled, the shadow swirling around it with a furious intensity. In that moment, the group felt it, the raw, choking grip of fear tightening around their hearts. Memories twisted into grotesque shapes, blending their happiest times with stark reminders of what they had lost. A child's laughter warped into frantic screams, the faces of loved ones flickering between joy and despair. "No!" the young man shouted, shaking his head, gritting his teeth as if he could physically push back the darkness. "We won't let you take this from us." Fueled by desperation, they held on tighter, their hands locking in a desperate grip. Sparks of light burst forth again from their embrace, scattering shadows like leaves caught in a storm. "Remember who you are," the woman cried, her voice piercing through the growing turmoil. "We are the sum of our battles, not the weight of our losses." But the figure only laughed, a cold, sinister sound that echoed like a death knell. "You think your memories give you strength? They are shackles, pulling you deeper into despair." Suddenly, the shadows surged forward, clawing at the edges of their light. Tendrils of darkness licked at their limbs, whispering promises of failure and regret as they wrapped tighter around them. The weight in their hearts began to settle back in, a crushing reminder of all they wished to forget. One by one, they faltered. Gasps mixed with cries of despair as thoughts of hope began to flicker, threatened by the consuming dark. Each dared to glance back, memories flashing with painful clarity. It was too much. They screamed for their past, but now it seemed to mock them, echoing the whispers of the shadow. "Stay present," the young man yelped, desperation clawing at him as he tried to rally their strength. "Fight. We can't let ourselves be defined by this pain." The pulse of collective energy surged once more, but now it felt fragile, like glass on the verge of shattering. They could sense the darkness leaning in, savoring their uncertainty. The chilling energy consumed the light, threatening to extinguish it if they lost focus. "Come on," someone yelled, voice wavering. "We can't let it win. Remember our laughter, our joys. Remember why we started." Each member of the group closed their eyes, visualizing the moments they cherished. The warmth exploded inside them, mixing with their fears, generating a new, vibrant glow that began to push back the shadows. "We are more than our failures. We are brave," the woman shouted, conviction dripping from her tone. But then, the figure moved, fast and powerful. In a sweep of its arm, it unleashed the echoes of regret that came flooding forth from their collective past. Strangled cries filled the air, knots of fear wrapping around their throats. The young man stumbled, falling to his knees as a memory surfaced, gut-wrenching and alive, a visage of loss so profound it felt as if his heart would break. He couldn't breathe. "Strength through pain, remember?" Another voice called, rushing to pull him up, holding his gaze. "You're not alone. We're in this together." Just as he grasped that fleeting thread of connection, the figure leaned in, the shadows thrumming with a malevolent thrill. "Would you trade this fleeting hope for the comfort of despair?" it hissed. "The choice is yours." The moment teetered on a knife's edge, each breath a challenge against the looming likelihood of failure. Fear slithered dangerously close, urging them to surrender. With a final, furious thought, the young man shouted into the abyss, "We choose to fight. We choose to live." And as the words left his lips, a blinding pulse erupted, casting the shadows away, but only briefly. The darkness clawed back threatening, relentless, unyielding. In the whirlwind of light and dark, it became clear, this would not be the end. The true darkness, deeper and more terrifying than any of them could conceive, awaited. What horror lay beyond the veil of their memories? What sacrifices would they have to endure to reclaim their souls? The blinding light flickered, struggling to hold the encroaching shadows at bay. Each pulse felt like a heartbeat, their final stand against the consuming darkness. As it pulsed and dimmed, dread seeped back in with the whispered promises of the shadow figure. "Fools!" it screeched, its voice a cold knife in the suffocating air. "You think love and laughter can shield you? You are nothing but echoes of your past, worthless and lost." Chills ran down the young man's spine. Each word struck like a punch, rattling his resolve. But he refused to give in. Clenching his fists, he focused on the shared warmth of his friends beside him. The woman's hand squeezed his reassuringly, and he felt the flicker of determination reignite. Together, he shouted, meeting the gaze of his companions. We can conquer this. With renewed vigor, they raised their joined arms as one, channeling their memories not as burdens but as fuel. Joyful laughter surfaced, piercing through the shadows like shards of glass. Each of their stories collided, mingling into a brilliantly glowing tapestry woven from love, loss, and resilience. Suddenly, the figures of their past danced around them, faces bright and shining with all they had fought for. The young man could see them clearly now, each a vibrant reminder of who they were, their laughter, their unity, their unyielding spirit. Remember! The woman cried, her voice ringing like a clarion call. They fought for us. We won't hide in our grief. Just then, the figure shrieked in rage, and the shadows writhed violently, grasping for them like gnashing teeth. The air thickened with foreboding, darkness swirling, obscuring sight and choking their breaths. Enough! The young man roared, drawing upon the energy from the light they had summoned. We are the architects of our own stories. He surged forward, stepping into the swirling shadows that threatened to swallow him whole. He felt its cold grip, felt every regret and sorrow batter at him, but he pushed hard against it, channeling every ounce of his love and hope as a fiery shield. The moment the darkness brushed his skin, the memories erupted within him. Every tear he shed, every hug he received, the warmth exploded outward, spitting light into the inky blackness. No! The figure held, thrashing, trying to retreat from the brilliance. You are weak. You have nothing. Their light pulsed brighter, and one by one, the group stepped forward. You have no power over us. They shouted in unison, their voices intertwining and gathering force, drowning out the spectre-est in the shadows seemed to writhe and moan, transforming from chaotic clumps into swirling clouds of despair. A massive wave of light surged forth, driving the darkness back with a blinding intensity. It pushed through the suffocating veil of despair and shone true in the decree of their courage. But even as they felt the resistance weaken, a sense of urgency clutched at their hearts. They were not out of danger yet. The shadows receded, but only for a moment. The figure reformed out of that retreating darkness, its eyes blazing with fury, grotesque and monstrous. You think you've won? This is just the beginning. It hissed, its voice a poisonous whisper that tingled with a promise of return. As the darkness loomed closer, they realized every victory carried a cost, and their shadows were still within reach. What will we sacrifice next? The young man thought, adrenaline racing, determination flooding his veins as they prepared for the fight ahead. A scream echoed through the night, a distress call or a warning? It was impossible to tell. But one thing was clear. The dark figure wasn't finished with them yet, and as they braced for the onslaught, they couldn't shake the feeling that the worst was yet to come. The echoes of the night were unsettling, a cacophony of fear and determination. The shadows twisted and seethed like a roiling storm, licking at the edges of their light. But the chosen ones held fast, strength pooling in their hands as if each heartbeat echoed a promise of defiance against the darkness. Together! Shouted the young man, his voice cutting through the suffocating air. We won't let the past define us. We are more than our failures, we are our choices. In response, the others began to chant, voices rising like a fierce tide against overwhelming odds. Unity forged their strength. Their hearts pulsed as one, an unyielding beacon pushing through the despair. With a sudden surge of courage, the young man took a step forward, raising his hands high. We choose light. His declaration shivered the air, and with it came a wave of energy surging from their collective memories. Laughter, love, and resilience burst forth like fireworks, illuminating the surrounding darkness with vibrant colors. They remembered the battles fought, the laughter shared, and the bonds formed through hardship. Each memory acted as an anchor, holding them steady against the rising tide of despair. The figure shrieked, a sound of unadulterated rage, shadows recoiling as the light burned brighter. You think this betrayal of your own history will save you? It hissed, mockery dripping from its voice. You cannot escape your truths. But the group pressed onward, fighting against the weight of their pasts. We face our truths. Another shouted defiantly. The shadows around them dwindled like a dying fire flickered by the winds of resolve. The clarity of their purpose ignited a ferocity that propelled them, and as they surged back at the figure, they felt the darkness loosening its grip. A shimmering light exploded from the center of their unity, a collective force like nothing the world had ever seen. It burst forth, cascading beam after beam into the void, each ray shattering the shadows into fragments as they cried out, wailing like lost souls. Now! The young man called. This is our moment. Step into the light. With an electrifying rush, they charged forward, transcending the fraught boundary between light and dark. They were no longer just victims of fate, they were the architects of their own future. Streaks of brilliant light surrounded them as they dashed toward the dark figure. As they drew close, the shadows enveloped the cloaked being, but determination surged through every heart. With a final, mighty shout, they reached out together, hands connecting as their collective warmth radiated against the cold abyss. The moment pressed forward into eternity as they collided with the figure, and a brilliant explosion erupted. The force of their unity blew apart the veil of shadows, the figure's malicious grin shattering into fragments of darkness. Light expanded, illuminating every crevice, every corner, banishing the last remnants of despair. In the aftermath, they fell to their knees, breathless but alive. The darkness dispersed into nothingness, revealing a brilliant, twinkling sky scattered with stars. The chosen ones looked up, a soft calm enveloping them, as if the weight of the world had finally lifted. "I'd always feared the dark," the young man whispered, his voice filled with reverence. "But it was merely a shadow of what I had yet to confront." "We are whole," the woman standing next to him said, her eyes shimmering with unshed tears of relief. "For every shadow we faced, we emerged stronger. We made our choice." The newfound sense of freedom wrapped around them, an intimate embrace that transformed fear into hope. As they stood together, touching the remnants of their past sorrow intertwined with strength, they understood what it meant to face the light. Each moment mattered, and they carried the legacy of their intertwined stories forward, brighter and lighter than they had ever known. But their victory was tinged with a bittersweet understanding: the darkness could return. It lay waiting in the shadows, lurking, just as it had before. But this time, they would be ready. With hearts beating in unison, they turned toward the horizons of a dawn painted with possibility. Together, they would not only embrace the light, but they would also face whatever came next side by side, never again alone. Understanding dawned, their journey was just beginning. Before you leave, there's something crucial to do. You need to subscribe immediately so you don't miss the next exclusive stories we're bringing your way, and smash that like button now to feed the algorithm, ensuring we keep creating content that captivates and inspires. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this ending. Your voice matters in this community, and don't wait even one more second. Share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Together, let us grow this amazing journey.